Alright, welcome back. So we're still in Module 3, and we're carrying on. This will be the second lecture video for Module 3. So we're dealing with constructors and field/property initializers. So I've got this class person, and we've got a couple of, and this essentially we're putting the constructor all in the declaration itself. So we're saying the class person, when you construct it, we're going to have two parameters that come in, both strings, first name and last name for person. Now we come in here and we've got properties associated with the person class. First name, it's public, it's read-only, it's a string. First name, and it gets that parameter that came in through the implicit constructor, how this is set up. The next one, public string last name. You can get last name, but you can't change last name because there's no set associated with it. This one's read-only, so you can access it by person.firstname, but you can't change it. So both of these, this one we're treating it as a field. This one's being treated like a property because it's got a get associated with it. So you're not directly accessing it. You're getting to it through the get. Similar to what's happening here. And in this one, we do the same kind of thing here. Alice and Jones come in, and we call the print function that's associated with person. Here's the print function associated with person, and it will write out the full name. The full name is first name concatenated together with a space in between first name and last name. So we invoked the print method at the time that we created a new instance of the person class. Similar, but on this one we invoked the toUpper method that's associated with the string class. So the string class has a variety of methods associated with it, and we received Jones in through last name. We took that last name string that came in and applied the toUpper method to it. And I said take last name, convert it to upper, and store the result in last name. It's read only. Now, here we're going to throw a null exception. And what's happening here is this person class, as we see here, requires two parameters and the constructor. I passed it one, but I didn't pass it anything here. So it's seeing a null value where it expects some value, and it will throw the null exception. Here's our read-only string last name. last name is equivalent to null. Throw new argument null exception last name, and then last name. So I'm trying to invoke this thing. I'm not giving it what it needs. And in here, they're explicitly going through and saying, look, here's what happens, and we're all ready to throw an exception because you gave me nothing. So I'm not using, I'm using a built-in exception, argument null exception, and I'm passing it what I've been given, what's in last name. Well, last name didn't get anything, so I said, you know what? Last name's equivalent to null. This is what we're doing. And I need to be, in some instances, I need to be ready for whatever's going to happen, handle the exceptions. As we keep going, we've got static classes. Static class, you can't instantiate it or create a subclass. When we see static, we see main method. That's a static method. We've got partial methods. Excuse me. Has two parts. There's the definition and the implementation of it. So here's partial. Doesn't return anything. The name and what gets passed to it. So we've got validate payment is what's getting invoked. And then here, there's nothing that's happening in here that's automatically doing it. We don't see it. And here, we actually did some work inside. Now, as we go through, you'll see more and more things relative to object orientation. So we talked about inheritance to a degree. I talked about encapsulation. So when I create an instance of the class, I inherit all of those fields, properties, whatever it may be. It depends on how the class is set up. So we've got polymorphism. And polymorphism, it's one of the core concepts of object-oriented programming. And it's when something happens in multiple different forms. Okay. When we look at polymorphism, so let's say that I create a class called coffee machine, and in it I have two different methods to brew coffee. So I've got two ways to brew coffee. But they're both doing the same thing. One requires a parameter and the other one doesn't. And the one that requires a parameter, so I'm overloading the method, but by doing it I create an instance of this coffee machine app, or class I should say. One method does the task, it performs the same task as the other in a way, but it does it differently. Okay? So we implement two different methods. Both of them have the same name. First one accepts one parameter and a certain type, and the other one accepts, let's say, two parameters. And when you call them, they both are essentially going to perform the same type of task. They're going to make coffee, but one of them's creating just a regular cup of coffee, and the other one's going to create you a cup of espresso. Technically, they are both coffee, but they're not alike. So that's this polymorphism concept. Okay. So So casting deals with the type that we're dealing with. And I'm not going to dig deep into casting in this lecture. All right. We deal with type casting, where we essentially will take a data type and create another data type of the same name to, let's say I take an integer and I utilize a typecasting method that will convert that integer to a double or a float. I'm typecasting. But essentially what I did was I took one instance of a class and converted it into an instance of another class. All right. I'm going to skip through some of this. I'll add in supplemental as needed in the resources or the lectures page. Okay. Function marked virtual can be overridden by some classes. We're not going to mess with this for now. Not going to mess with this. So if I have, let's say I create an instance of a class. If I've labeled it as abstract, I can't create an instance of it. So I can't instantiate it. Okay. good. We're good. Pause this for a second. All right, I jumped down here. So this get type method is a built-in method. It's part of the system itself. So I want to find out what type that I'm dealing with. I just give it the name, and it will tell me the type that I'm dealing with. Here I'm typecasting with the toString. I mentioned this already. Okay. So now structs are similar to a class. Structs don't support inheritance. So structs are different than classes in how we go create them. Right? And I've got a video set up for you already in resources about structs. So I don't want to double you up, have you watch the same content multiple times. So we've got the access modifiers for structs, many of them similar to classes. So something else that we've got, and we'll talk about this later, we've got interfaces, and an interface is similar to a class, but it's doing something. It's about behaviors and not holding state data. Okay. I think we're good with what I want to cover from this chapter. I've got enums in one of the videos that I've got for you in the resources page. So I've got that for you already. I've got structs and enums, and we've got generics, and I'll have another video for you there for just generics. Alright, so with that, let me pause this and move something over for you. Alright, let's start back up again. Now, got an overview page for Module 3. And the first video that I haven't posted yet is going to go here. The one you're watching now will be in here. And in here I've already got you the videos that I was talking about before. So I'll add this one in at the top of the list. And you've got a group membership task that you need to complete. Based on the discussion that's going to take place, the ones that have already taken place, and what's going to take place in this module. You should get familiar with the others that are in the class itself. Everybody's got to be on a group. It's your choice to self-assign. If you don't self-assign, if you don't create your own group, and it could be a group of just 2, you can have as many as 5 group members. 5 can be a great thing, or it can be a horrible thing if they don't agree. Two can be a great thing, but it's horrible when one doesn't do anything. So there's a whole lot of goods and bads that come along with this. And I get it. Everybody hates being on teams. They hate being on groups. I love being on groups as long as the members of the group are participating. I've been on some great groups, but in programming we have to work as groups. You got to get used to it, the good and the bad. And over time you learn how to interact with group members that are not engaging. And you learn to interact with them in a not a confrontational, combative way. There's ways to go about interacting with them. And it could be the way I interact with them is to reach out to the boss and say, look, this person's not doing anything. You want us to do this work, but they haven't done anything. So if you have a group and somebody's not interacting within the group, I'm the boss. So reach out to me and let me know that, hey, we haven't heard from this person. Now, when it comes to the group, once the groups have been defined, they don't change. Those groups will be the same for the group assignments that you'll see in the future for the rest of the course. So there is no, hey, we want to get this person on. No, it's once they've been set, they're set. It's carved in stone for the rest of the term. But let's say somebody doesn't engage, doesn't interact with others, and doesn't end up with their name submitted. I only need one person to submit the names for the group. At the end of that module, end of this module, I'll go through and I will set up the groups over here on the left under the People tab. I don't want you doing it. I do it. That way the assignments can be tied to it. If you go create the group, there's no assignments. It just confuses others. So don't create groups over here. You're going to send me in this assignment a list. Just going to type in the names. You can either have a Word document with the names or type it in the text entry. Here's the names as they exist in the roster of who's on your team, on your group. Now, if somebody's name gets submitted for more than one team, they get removed from both teams. So be sure about whose name gets submitted when you submit the roster. Everybody has to be in agreement. All members have to be in agreement of who the membership is comprised of before the names get submitted. Okay? I strongly suggest using things like WhatsApp or Discord or things like that to interact with others so that you've got a sense of privacy outside the course towards, I don't see what's going on in the team. I don't need to see. It's you folks are working together on your team, and it doesn't have to happen. I'm not micromanaging it. It's your team. You manage it the way you want to manage it, but I set the rules to membership, how many members, and what happens if the membership isn't done right. Okay. So when this is due, and I'll have the due date on here. It's due the same time as the rest of the module. When this is due, if your name has not come up in one of the submissions, and I only need each group submitted one time, so figure out who on your group is going to submit the list of names, and as long as that person does it, your group's fine. If somebody's name does not get submitted at all, and there's no groups of one, has to be 2 or more, max of 5. If somebody's name does not get submitted, if for whatever reason that person doesn't take time to interact with other people or become a member of one of the groups or teams, I'll automatically take whoever's names are left over after I've created the teams based on the submissions. Those that are left over after the teams have been created, I'll create the teams. And if somebody's name got submitted twice, they'll be in that pool of students that I'll go create them randomly. So if you don't go create the team on your own and figure out who you want to work with, that's how it all plays out. It'll be randomly assigned, and I'd much rather prefer knowing who's going to be on my team or having some choice in it, as opposed to hope for the best. Right. So that's the group membership assignment. So be cautious about how you go about that. You're stuck with them for a while. There's a quiz associated with this module. So you've got the quiz, group membership, a reflection at the end, just like the other ones you had. And you've got a discussion, but this one's different than the others. So for this module, you're going to make one main post that includes a link to a CS file in your GitHub repo that uses any of the classes provided in this text file, which comes from code in the chapter that we just went through. So there are a bunch of instances of classes or examples of classes. All I want you to do is create an instance of a class. So I want you to provide in your CS the class that you're using, you're instantiating, and your code where you're creating an instance of it. It's simple as that. You're creating an instance of a class. Well, not quite as simple as that. So you're going to create an instance of it, and you're going to use any of the concepts that are in the other .txt files. So essentially, any of the other stuff that we just talked about. Any of those keywords, the different little things, get, set, those kinds of things, any of that. And in your post, you're just going to, here's a link to that file in my repo so people can go access it, download it, see it. They're not modifying it. They don't have the ability to change it or modify it, but they can read it. So we've got to set our permissions to where they can read what we've got. They can't change it. And explain what it is in your post. So you've got a post explaining what you chose to do in your code and a link to your code. And then you'll have 2 replies to other students. Now, since your main post is different than a traditional main post here, if you need to put a main post, if you need to post something that's not a reply to somebody else. So let's say that, the example is, for some, it may be an outreach for insights or help on completing that task. You can create a post that's not necessarily a response to somebody else, but I'll give you credit for the response to somebody else. If your other main post or your other post is outreach to, hey, can somebody give me some insights into whatever it may be that you're looking for help on. Okay. Traditional posts, responses, just like the things we've seen before. Okay. Avoid the attaboys, the thank yous. I really liked what you posted. like I said, it makes the person feel good, but it doesn't add anything substantive to the discussion. People don't want to go through and read a whole bunch of, I liked what you posted, I liked what you posted. I'm not giving credit for posts that are as simple as, good post, I like that, it really helped me a lot, or thank you. That's not substantive. Okay? So there's the discussion. Don't make it difficult. I mean, the hardest part with this is going to be getting comfortable with posting something to your GitHub. So you'll, in your, whether you got your Visual Code or Visual Studio, whatever it may be, you'll create a .cs file. And once you've got that .cs file created, you'll save it in your GitHub repo. And then you just get that link to your file, and when you post it, others can let you know, hey, I can't access it. So this will help us get comfortable with using the GitHub repos, get comfortable with finding ins and outs of the coding, creating instances of some class, whatever the class may be. It could have been that octopus class that we saw. It doesn't matter, whatever we want to create an instance of. But just explore, go through and utilize some of the different stuff. We'll see some will get really creative and explore and do a lot. Others will just do what they need to do, and that'll be it. That'll give us some insights into how engaged people are, and give you some ideas on who you want to be on a team with. So with that, I'll see you in the next video.